You've heard of spiritual awakening. But what if everything you've been told about it is just the beginning? Many believe enlightenment is the final destination, but that's a common misconception. Prepare to have your understanding shattered as we explore 7 profound states of existence that redefine consciousness and spiritual evolution. You know, there's something rather amusing about the whole spiritual marketplace these days. Everyone's selling you the grand finale, the ultimate destination, the big cosmic payoff called enlightenment. And then what happens? You sit there, perhaps after years of meditation, after your moment of awakening, after the veils have supposedly lifted, and you find yourself thinking, is this all there is? It's a bit like finally reaching the top of a mountain you've been climbing your entire life, only to discover that what you thought was the summit is actually just a plateau. And beyond it stretches an entire mountain range you never knew existed. Now, here's what nobody tells you in those weekend workshops and meditation retreats. Consciousness isn't a light switch that goes from off to on. It's not a finish line you cross and then retire to some eternal blissful hammock. No, consciousness is more like a river that keeps flowing, keeps deepening, keeps revealing new territories of experience that you couldn't have even imagined from the previous vantage point. As the ancient Upanishads remind us, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. But what I want to share with you today goes even beyond that beautiful metaphor. We're going to explore 7 distinct dimensions of being that exist beyond what most spiritual traditions call awakening. Think of them as 7 different octaves of the same cosmic song, each one revealing a richer, more complex harmony than the last. And here's the beautiful thing. These aren't theoretical abstractions or mystical mumbo-jumbo. These are actual, observable, experiential shifts in how you perceive and participate in reality. They're as real as the difference between dreaming and waking, between seeing in black and white and suddenly seeing in color. So shall we begin this journey together? Let's step beyond the conventional and see what wonders await in the uncharted territories of consciousness. Now, we begin with something that sounds deceptively simple: embodied presence. And this is where most people actually stumble right out of the gate. You see, you can read all the sacred texts, memorize every sutra, understand intellectually that you are not separate from the universe, that form is emptiness and emptiness is form, and yet still be walking around like a nervous puppet, completely disconnected from your own body. Rumi once wrote, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. But how can you be drawn by anything when you're not even present in your own skin?" What we're talking about here is when the wisdom drops from your head into your bones. It's when the philosophy becomes physiology. Imagine that everything you've understood about peace, about presence, about the eternal now, suddenly becomes your default mode of operation. Not something you have to remember to do, not something you practice, but simply what you are. It's rather like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you're thinking about balance, about pedaling, about steering. But then one day, you're not thinking at all. The bicycle becomes an extension of your body. You and the bicycle are moving as one integrated system. When you reach this dimension, your entire being becomes an expression of peace. People can feel it when they're around you. It's not something you're trying to project. It's simply radiating from you the way warmth radiates from a fire. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because you're doing anything special, but because you've become a tuning fork, vibrating at a frequency of coherence and stillness. The funny thing is, this isn't about becoming some serene statue. You can be laughing, crying, dancing, arguing, and still there's this unshakable presence underneath it all, like the ocean floor that remains calm even when storms rage on the surface. As Lao Tzu observed, do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Well, here the mud has settled, not through effort, but through integration. The next dimension is where things start getting really interesting. This is resonant co-creation, and it completely transforms your relationship with reality itself. Up until this point, you've probably been experiencing life as something that happens to you. Even in your spiritual practice, you're the observer, the witness, sitting on the banks of the river, watching it flow by. But here, you discover that you're not separate from the river. You are the river, and the river is responding to you. Now, this isn't about the popular notion of manifesting, where you make vision boards and repeat affirmations, hoping the universe will deliver like some cosmic Amazon service. That's still operating from the paradigm of separation. You over here wanting something over there. No. What happens at this level is something altogether different. It's when you begin to feel the subtle currents of possibility moving through every moment. It's like developing a sixth sense for which way the universe is leaning, what wants to emerge, what's ready to be born. Joseph Campbell said it beautifully. Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors where there were only walls. But there were only walls. But it's even more intimate than that. You begin to sense the doors before they open. You feel the walls becoming transparent. You have an intention, but it's not a grasping intention. It's more like a question you're asking with your whole being. And then you notice, oh, there's an intuitive pull in this direction. There's a synchronicity pointing that way. You meet exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. The book falls off the shelf and opens to the page you needed to read. It's as if you've learned to dance with existence itself. You lead a little. Existence leads a little. And together you create a movement that neither of you could have choreographed alone. Your desires and universal flow become indistinguishable from each other, because you've stopped insisting on your personal agenda and started feeling into what wants to happen through you. The ancient Chinese understood this principle well. They called it Wu Wei, effortless action, going with the grain of things, but experiencing it directly, living it moment by moment. That's the transformation we're talking about here. The third dimension is where your individual consciousness begins to dissolve into something far more vast. This is infinite interconnectedness, and when you arrive here, the entire game changes. You know how scientists tell us that everything is connected, that every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star, that invisible fields of energy connect all things. Well, one day you stop knowing this intellectually and start feeling it viscerally. You look at a tree, and you don't just see a tree. You feel the relationship. You sense the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, the shared dependence, the ancient partnership between plant and animal life. You understand at a cellular level that you and that tree are collaborators in the same grand experiment called life. Chief Seattle once said, "Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves." At this level of awareness, these aren't just poetic words, they're your lived reality, every moment of every day. And it's not just with living things. You begin to feel your participation in the whole web of existence. The weather patterns, the orbital mechanics of planets, the slow dance of galaxies, you recognize yourself in all of it because the boundaries between you and not you have become transparent. Now, this can be overwhelming at first. Suddenly you're feeling the pain of the world, the joy of the world, the confusion and the clarity all mixed together. It's like your nervous system has expanded to include everything. You are no longer a separate note in the cosmic symphony. You're hearing and feeling the entire orchestra from the inside. But here's the miracle. Along with this expanded sensitivity comes an expanded sense of purpose. You realize that you're not just some random accident wandering around on a spinning rock. You have a role, a function, a unique note that only you can play in this infinite web of relationships. And playing that note with full presence and authenticity becomes your natural expression. As the Buddhist teaching goes, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. And you do laugh, not because everything is easy or pleasant, but because you see how exquisitely interconnected it all is, how nothing is wasted, how even the difficulties serve the larger pattern. Now we come to a dimension that changes everything, and I mean everything. This is the pivot point, the doorway through which you cannot return unchanged. This is non-dual perception. You see, up until this point, even with all your spiritual progress, there's still been a subtle duality operating. There's been you and your experience. There's been the observer and the observed. Even in deep meditation, there's been someone doing the meditation, someone watching the breath, someone being present. But here, that last boundary dissolves. And I mean really dissolves, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. The ancient sage Huang Po put it perfectly. The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see. What he's pointing to is this: when you finally stop trusting your thoughts about reality and start trusting direct perception, something radical happens. Imagine you're watching a movie, and you're so absorbed in the story that you've forgotten you're in a theater. You're identified with the characters, caught up in the drama. Then suddenly you remember, I'm not in the movie, I'm watching the movie. But then comes an even deeper recognition. I'm not separate from the movie either. The movie is appearing in my consciousness. Without my awareness, there is no movie. What emerges is the realization that you are not looking at reality. You are the space in which reality appears. You're not having experiences. Experiences are movements of your own awareness. There is no separation between subject and object, between self and world. There's only one seamless, undivided happening. Now, the beautiful paradox is that when this non-dual awareness stabilizes, life doesn't become boring or flat. Quite the opposite. Colors become more vivid. Music becomes more beautiful. Relationships become more intimate. Because when you're no longer defending a separate self, when you're no longer maintaining boundaries between in here and out there, everything becomes direct, immediate, alive. And here's where it gets practical. You know, all that internal conflict you've been carrying around, the arguments with yourself, the should I or shouldn't I debates, the guilt and the self-judgment, in this dimension of awareness, these simply cease. Not because you've suppressed them, but because the structure that generated them has been seen through. When there's no separate self to protect, what is there to defend? When there's no past to regret and no future to fear, because past and future are recognized as present thoughts, what is there to worry about? Action becomes effortless, because it's simply what's happening, not what you are doing. Ramana Maharshi captured this beautifully when he said, your own self-realization is the greatest service you can render the world. Because from this non-dual perspective, serving others and serving yourself become the same thing. There's only one self appearing in infinite forms. This is why this dimension is the gateway. It's the essential preparation for what comes next. Because once you've recognized yourself as the infinite field of awareness in which all experience arises, then you're ready to consciously participate in creation at levels that would have been impossible from the perspective of a separate self. The fifth dimension is where things become rather magical, though I hesitate to use that word because it makes it sound supernatural when it's actually perfectly natural. This is unified creativity, and it represents a quantum leap in how creation itself occurs through you. You remember how earlier we talked about resonant co-creation? Well, that was like learning to dance. This is like discovering you're not just dancing, you are the dance itself, and the music, and the dancers all at once. Here, the very distinction between desire and fulfillment begins to collapse. It's not that you think of something and then it manifests. That's still too sequential, too cause and effect. Instead, the intention and its manifestation arise almost simultaneously as two aspects of the same movement. Think of it like this. When you decide to lift your arm, does your arm lift? Of course it does. Instantly. There's no gap between the intention and the action, because your arm is part of you. Well, at this level, you begin to experience all of reality with that same immediacy. The universe becomes as responsive to your consciousness as your arm is to your intention. Pablo Picasso once said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. What he didn't say is that there's a return to that childlike creativity on the other side of mastery. A creativity that's unfiltered, spontaneous, and utterly aligned with universal intelligence. Now, this is not about ego gratification. This is not about getting the car and the house and the perfect relationship. Because by the time you reach this dimension, your wants have become aligned with what wants to emerge through you. There's no conflict between personal desire and universal flow, because they've become the same thing. You don't manifest. You allow manifestation to occur through your being. You've become a channel for creativity to express itself in form. It's effortless in the same way that a river flowing downhill is effortless. Gravity isn't making an effort. The river isn't trying hard. It's just following its nature. And here's where it gets even more interesting. At this level, you gain access to what some traditions call the Akashic records, what we might call the universal blueprint, the field of infinite potential that contains all possible patterns, all possible solutions, all possible innovations. When you're creating from here, you're not limited to your personal knowledge, your individual experience, your private storehouse of ideas. You're tapping into the same intelligence that grows trees and spins galaxies. You're accessing the cosmic database, if you will. This is how genuine breakthroughs happen. Not through grinding effort, not through trying harder, but through alignment. The solution you've been seeking suddenly appears fully formed, as if it was downloaded from somewhere beyond your individual mind. Because it was. Scientists in the flow state report this. Artists report this. Einstein famously said the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. He was describing this dimension of unified creativity, where you become a clear channel for mystery to express itself. The implications are staggering. Imagine approaching our global challenges: climate change, inequality, conflict, not from our limited individual perspectives, but from this place of unified creativity. Imagine innovation that's not driven by competition and profit, but by alignment with what genuinely wants to emerge for the benefit of all life. This is not fantasy. This is the natural result of consciousness evolving beyond the limitations of separate selfhood into recognition of its infinite creative potential. And when enough individuals access this dimension, we'll witness a renaissance of human creativity that makes all previous achievements look like kindergarten drawings. Now we arrive at the sixth dimension, and we're entering territory that's genuinely difficult to describe with linear language. This is absolute integration, where the very fabric of space and time reveals its true nature. You see, our ordinary perception of time is like being on a train, looking out the window. We see the landscape passing by in sequence. Past, present, future. One thing after another. Cause and effect. Birth, life, death. It seems obvious, undeniable, that time flows in one direction. But what if you stepped off the train? What if you rose above it and could see the entire track at once? The station where the train departed, the station where it's heading, and every point in between, all simultaneously present. T.S. Eliot touched on this when he wrote, "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past." But experiencing this directly is something else entirely. At this level, time reveals itself as a dimension that can be viewed from outside itself. Past, present, and future become like beads on a string that you can see all at once. This doesn't mean you can necessarily change the past or predict the future in some Hollywood time travel sense. But you can access the wisdom, the information, the patterns from all points in the continuum. You begin to understand how the past is still influencing the present, how the future is already casting its shadow backward, how everything is interconnected in ways that linear causality can't explain. William Blake saw it clearly: to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Space undergoes a similar transformation. The experience of being located in a particular body, in a particular place, becomes more fluid. You realize that here and there are perspectives within consciousness, not absolute facts. You're not contained by your body. Your body is appearing within the infinite expanse of your awareness. From this vantage point, you gain access to profound wisdom, not book learning, not intellectual knowledge, but direct knowing that comes from seeing the patterns across time and space. Some call it accessing the Akashic records. Others call it tapping into universal consciousness. The label doesn't matter. The experience is unmistakable. You meet someone and you perceive not just their present personality, but the entire trajectory of their soul's journey. You understand instantly the lessons they're working with, the gifts they're developing, the patterns they're resolving, not because you're psychic in some supernatural sense, but because linear time has become transparent to you. You face a decision, and you can sense its implications, rippling forward and backward through time. You perceive which choices lead to expansion and which to contraction, not because you've calculated the outcomes, but because you're seeing from a perspective that includes the outcomes. This dimension provides unparalleled clarity and foresight. It's like having access to a cosmic library where every book ever written and ever to be written is available to you. You simply reach into the field of infinite information and extract what's needed in this moment. And this dissolution of linear perception is the final preparation. Because what comes next, the seventh dimension, requires that you be completely free of time-based thinking, completely liberated from space-based identity. You must be ready to dissolve into the absolute itself, to recognize that you were never separate from it to begin with. And now we arrive at the seventh dimension, and I can barely speak of this without sounding like I've gone completely round the bend. But here we go. This is unity consciousness embodiment, and it represents the culmination of the entire journey, though of course, being infinite, there is no true culmination. In all the previous dimensions, there's still been a subtle sense of you experiencing something greater than yourself. You're interconnected with everything, you're perceiving non-dually. You're transcending time and space, but there's still a you doing all this. Here, that last trace of separation dissolves. You don't experience oneness. You become oneness. The distinction between your consciousness and universal consciousness completely vanishes. This is not merging with God, as if you're a drop returning to the ocean. It's the recognition that you never left the ocean, that the drop was always the ocean pretending to be separate for the joy of the game. As the Zen masters say, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. But oh, what a difference in how the wood is chopped. Now, from the outside, nothing may appear to have changed. You still have a body, a personality, a life to live. But on the inside, there's no longer anyone in there experiencing it. There's just experiencing. There's just this spontaneous arising of perception, thought, feeling, action. All of it happening by itself, within itself, to itself. It's the ultimate homecoming, the profound belonging that every human heart has been seeking. You recognize that you are not in the universe. The universe is in you. Or more accurately, there is no meaningful distinction between the two. As Nisargadatta Maharaj declared, wisdom tells me I am nothing. Love tells me I am everything. Between the two, my life flows, and from this place of complete unity, creativity flows in ways that defy all limitations. You're no longer creating art. You are art expressing itself through human hands. You're no longer solving problems. Problems and solutions are arising and resolving within the same field of consciousness that you are. This is creativity directly from source, unfiltered, unconditioned by personal history or individual limitations. It's like becoming a clear channel through which the infinite pours itself into form. The greatest artists, musicians, inventors, and visionaries have touched this place, even if briefly. They describe being taken over by something larger, becoming an instrument for forces beyond their personal will. At this level of being, this becomes your permanent residence. And here's the beautiful paradox that characterizes this ultimate dimension. Dynamic stillness. There's an absolute unshakable peace at the core of your being. Nothing disturbs it. Not pleasure or pain, not success or failure, not life or death. It's a stillness so profound that it's beyond words, beyond concepts, beyond any experience you can point to. As the Tao Te Ching reminds us, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. And yet, simultaneously, there's vigorous, purposeful engagement with the world. You're not detached or withdrawn. You're fully present, fully active, fully involved in the dance of life. It's like being the still center of a spinning wheel. The wheel is turning, moving, accomplishing, but the center remains motionless. Your actions are happening, but they're not effortful. Life is living itself through you with perfect intelligence, perfect timing, perfect appropriateness. This is the harmony of being and doing, the marriage of emptiness and form, the resolution of all paradoxes. You've become what you always were. Infinite consciousness at play in the field of time and space, forgetting and remembering itself in an endless dance of creation. Meister Eckhart understood this when he wrote, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love." This is not metaphor. This is direct description of what emerges at this level of realization. So there you have it. 7 dimensions of being that exist beyond conventional awakening. 7 octaves of the same cosmic song. 7 vistas of consciousness, each more expansive than the last. Now you might be thinking, that's all very fascinating, but what do I do with this information? How do I actually explore these dimensions? Well, here's the secret that the spiritual marketplace doesn't want you to know. You're already experiencing glimpses of all these dimensions right now. They're not somewhere else, some future achievement. They're aspects of your present awareness that you simply haven't recognized or stabilized yet. The practice is really quite simple, though not necessarily easy. It requires attention, patience, and a willingness to let go of everything you think you know. Start where you are. If you're identified with your thoughts, begin to recognize that you're not your thoughts. You're the awareness in which thoughts appear. If you're identified with your emotions, notice that emotions arise and pass within the unchanging space of your consciousness. Practice embodiment. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath moving in your body. Bring awareness to the sensations that are always present, but usually ignored. This is how you anchor spiritual understanding in lived experience. As Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet. Pay attention to synchronicities. Notice when life is flowing, when doors are opening effortlessly, when you're in resonance with what wants to happen. This is co-creation, revealing itself to you in real time. Explore your interconnection. Spend time in nature. Really look at another person, beyond their surface appearance, into the consciousness gazing out through their eyes. Recognize the same awareness that animates you, animates all things. Carl Sagan said it beautifully. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Feel into that truth. And most importantly, question everything. Question the reality of time. Question the solidity of matter. Question the existence of a separate self, not as intellectual exercises, but as genuine inquiries into direct experience. These dimensions aren't reserved for monks in caves or enlightened masters in distant lands. They are the natural evolution of consciousness that becomes available when you stop defending your limitations and start exploring your infinite nature. Now, here's something crucial to understand. If enough human beings make this journey, if enough of us wake up to these expanded dimensions of consciousness, the implications for our species are profound beyond measure. We're at a critical juncture in human evolution. The old ways of being, the tribalism, the separation, the competition for scarce resources are no longer serving us. They're threatening our very survival. We need a new level of consciousness, not as a luxury, but as an urgent necessity. And that's what these 7 dimensions represent, the next phase of human development. Not for a select few, but potentially for everyone willing to take the journey. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin saw this coming when he wrote, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." So I want to leave you with a question, and it's not a rhetorical question. It's an invitation that requires a real answer from you. Are you ready? Are you ready to transcend conventional understanding, to let go of the comfortable boundaries of your separate self, to explore your true infinite potential? Are you ready to discover that you're not a small, limited creature wandering through a vast, indifferent universe, but rather the vast universe itself, experiencing its own infinite creativity through the unique lens of your particular form? Because if you are genuinely ready to take this journey, then everything I've described today is not just possible, it's inevitable. The mountain is there, the path is there. The only question is, will you climb? And perhaps somewhere along the way, somewhere between the 3rd dimension and the 4th, or the 6th and the 7th, we'll meet each other, not as separate travelers, but as the one consciousness, recognizing itself in infinite forms. Until then, remember what the Buddha taught. No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. But also remember what the mystics know. You are never truly alone on this path, because the path itself is made of the same consciousness that you are. The journey continues. The evolution continues. Consciousness exploring its own infinite depths continues. And you, whoever you think you are right now, receiving these words, you are not the end point of that evolution. You are the cutting edge, the growing tip, the place where the universe is becoming conscious of itself in new and unprecedented ways. So take the next step, question the next assumption, let go of the next limitation. The 7 dimensions await, and beyond them, well, that's the mystery that keeps the cosmic dance dancing, isn't it? Safe travels, fellow explorer. May your journey be filled with wonder. May your discoveries exceed your imagination. And may you recognize in the end that you were never separate from what you were seeking. You are that. You have always been that. And these 7 dimensions are simply that recognizing itself more fully, more consciously, more completely. Now, go and see for yourself.